Hi everybody, it's Thomas here from Thomas Fitzgerald Photography, and this video is another live editing session. So normally I do these videos for Patreon, but for the purposes of this one I might actually just put this up on YouTube as well so that everybody can see what these videos are about. And for those who haven't seen one of these before, it's basically I go through my editing process for whatever it is, and it's basically unedited, so it's an unfiltered look at how I edit either an image or a group of images. And in this case I'm going to be working with this photo here, which is an image of Glendalough, which is a national park in Wicklow in Ireland, and it's a very famous landscape. And I have this photo I took which was of the famous lake in Glendalough. So the reason I'm going to be editing this today is there's a couple of things wrong with this, and I've already done just a few tweaks to it, so just to kind of save a bit, but let me just show you the reason why I want to do some changes to this. So this is, it's a fairly okay image, but there's one kind of big issue with it, and that is there's no kind of foreground interest here. So compositionally wise, it's not too bad. Like, we've kind of got our rule of thirds going on here, and we've kind of got leading lines to an extent, but it's really just kind of lacking something here in the foreground. So if I just kind of draw on this for a second, so we kind of have roughly rule of thirds, but all down here it needs something for to give your attention. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I looked through some of the other images from the shoot, and I came across, let me see if I can find it, this one. So actually there's another version here. So this one, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually take the branch from this and composite that back onto our landscape shot. So we'll go back here, and okay, so let me just turn back off the annotations. And so I've already done some kind of tweaks to this image, so let me just show you where we started with. So that's where we started with, and just some basic adjustments. I'm not going to bother you with that because it's just pretty standard stuff. So I'll send this image over to Photoshop, and I'll send the other image over to Photoshop, which I've already done. So here is our landscape, and here is our tree image. So the first thing we need to do is to cut this out. Now, there used to be the case where this would actually be quite painstaking. You'd have to either use the mask tool or paint on a mask, or you'd use the path tool or something like that. But nowadays you can actually do it relatively easily using, if you have the latest version of Photoshop. So we're going to use the select subject tool, or the object selection tool. Okay, so we go in here and we use the lasso. And by the way, people sometimes complain when I make these videos and I'm using the full resolution of the screen, but the reason I'm doing that is it's so that I can see better here, because when I shrink this down everything comes slightly blurry when I make it 1080p, and because this is, you're following along with my actual edit session, that is why I'm doing it at full resolution. So I will try and zoom in if there's anything that needs to be seen particularly clearly. Okay, so anyway, back to the task at hand. So what you need to do is, using the lasso, once you have this object selection tool selected, you just kind of draw over this, and you need to try and keep it as close as you can without going over it. I'm using my mouse here and I'm not great at doing this. I've had way too much coffee. Okay, so we're just going to drag over this roughly. Oh, where should we get this in? Down here. Oh, I missed a bit. We can go back and fix that in a second. Okay, so we select that. So this uses AI to automatically select the object, and as you can see, it's got most of it. It's missing a few bits, but we can fix that easily enough. So we just hold down the Shift key to add to the selection, and then just drag over the part again that's not fully selected. Okay, and again do this up here. Okay, I missed this branch altogether, so we want to go over this. Okay, and again, with just a few little bits here. Just add to that. And now it's got too much, so we hold down the Alt key. Okay, and then again the Shift key. Okay. And I think that's almost everything. You can of course tweak this after the fact, so okay, and then this got a little too much here, but that's actually hard to even see myself, so okay. And then again here. And then just in here, just a little too much. Okay. This might look like it's a bit complicated, but it's actually a hell of a lot easier than doing this manually. And then just a little bit here. You can of course just go in and brush this out manually as well, which is probably I'll end up doing for some things. Okay, so that's close enough for now. We'll tweak this a little bit later. So I'm just going to go Command J to make this on a separate object, and then we can turn this off. And you can see when I was practicing, here's one I did earlier, so which is the better one. I think they're both more or less the same. Okay, so next thing now, I'm gonna pop over to my landscape image, and this is where we're gonna plunk this. So just drag this over and plunk this down, and we kind of drag it into our foreground position. Okay, and we can just kind of scale this a little bit. We kind of want the bit that's in the water to still be in the water. So something like around here maybe. Just gonna tweak this a bit, maybe up and over a bit. I just kind of want it so that the branch is in a little bit of water. So it doesn't matter if it goes off the edge. I think that's near enough. Okay, so the next thing you want to do now is we need to get this to match. Obviously the colors don't match at the moment, so I'm going to start with hue saturation, and you just hold down the Option key until your cursor changes like this and click there. So that makes sure it only affects this layer, and we're just going to turn the saturation down a little bit, and also we're going to switch to the reds and turn the reds down a bit. Okay, so that's actually matching a lot better. So then the next thing we need to do is we need to add curves, and again hold down the Option key and just click so that it's only affecting that, and we'll just tweak our curves again to get it to match a bit better. And you can just spend a little bit of time finessing this so that it matches reasonably well, and you can kind of just tweak both of these. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to go in here and I'm going to zoom in a bit, and we just want to see if there's any issues that need to be fixed. So I'm just going to add a little mask here, and I'm just going to brush in I'm just going to brush away some of the water here so that it looks like it's more embedded in. And see, that looks much better. And then we'll just check some of the other bits, see if there's any areas that are standing out, like so. And I try and get this to look like it's going behind that, so just like paint around the edges there like that. That's pretty good. The sharpness and all doesn't match brilliantly, But you only really see that zoomed in, so we would kind of get away with it. We can try and sharpen this up a little. So filter, sharpen, unsharp mask. That's a bit better actually. We don't want it too much either, so it's really just the end of it. But I think we'll get away with it. I might just go take down the reds a bit more. So go back to reds. It's just this part here is a bit, it just doesn't really blend with the rest of it. That's actually a lot better. Okay, so if we look at this, it's not bad, but there's still one big issue, and that is there's no shadow for it on the ground, which you would expect to see. So that's easily fixed. So we simply duplicate this layer. So Command J to duplicate the layer. Then we want to select the bottom one and just scale it down. Hold down the Shift key. So scale it down so it's something like this, and just bring it up. Okay. Press return. And now we want to fill this with black. So edit, fill, and go black. Okay, and then just blur it. So blur, goes in blur, something like this. Okay, and that still looks a bit fake. So the next thing we need to do is just set this to overlay. Okay, and that looks much more natural. So now, if we group all these together, so now we have our foreground object. And I did do this earlier, so let's see how good I matched it. So you can tell me which version you think is better. I think the original one's a bit better. Maybe just move this whole thing down a bit. Actually twist it. I think our new version is a bit too bright, so I'm just going to drop this, make this a bit darker. And that's actually a lot better. Okay, and now we have our foreground object. So if you compare this to without it, the composition here is quite unbalanced, whereas we add something into the foreground and now it looks a lot better. It's not perfect, it's not really going to stand up to scrutiny, but it's definitely a better image. If I printed this, you would never know that was composited, I'm pretty sure. A quick trick for that, by the way, if you want to see what something's going to look like printed, somebody recommended this to me before, is to view the image at 50%, and you can generally see if there's any issues there. If you have a high DPI display or a Retina display, just viewing it normally is actually, it gives you a reasonably good idea as to what it's going to look like, and I think we get away with that. There's only one thing that's kind of bugging me a bit, and this is the shadow doesn't quite line up at the end, so I'm just going to tweak this a bit more, and I'm going to turn on the warp, and we can just warp this end of the shadow up here, and we can make it match. That's better. Okay, so there you have it. That is our, let's just go full screen here. Oh, they've changed that. Okay, so that is our finished composition. Like I said, it's not 100% perfect. It's one of those things I could spend ages tweaking. Something just doesn't look right here. It's probably a bit dark, maybe. No, I think it's okay. Really need to print this out to actually see what it looks like properly, but anyway, you get the idea. This is annoying me now. I'm just going to try one thing. We can try just kind of different positions on this. Actually, that's not bad at all. Just kind of get it off the edge of the screen. It's just the main thing is to make sure that bit that's in the water is in the water, because otherwise it starts to look a bit weird. But yeah, I think that's okay. You could actually clone some rocks around it too if you wanted it to make it look more realistic. Okay, so that is it this time. I finally finished tweaking. I hope you found this useful, and as always, thank you everybody on Patreon for supporting the channel. And if I do put this up on YouTube and you have just watched it, don't forget to check out my Patreon feed. I do some of these videos every now and again as part of the top tier. It's a live editing session. Sometimes they're longer, sometimes I'll do more complex things, like I'll go through a whole edit session in Lightroom or Capture One or something like that. But this was just a quick one, just to show some of my, just to show off a little bit of Photoshop. So once again, thanks for watching. Hope you found this useful, and yeah, see you next time. Bye.